We all want love, but most of us don't want to date to get it. Because let's be honest, dating kind of sucks. But maybe it doesn't have to if we actually know what we're doing. Hi, I'm Kira Sabin, and this is Reinventing Dating, a smart and sweary podcast for all singles to learn the mindsets and skills to date with intention and confidence. Join me weekly as I break down the science and psychology behind what's working in our dating culture and what isn't. Every week, I bring a new topic, trend, skill, or mindset that can help us get out of our own way to learn how to date for relationships that we actually want. Because love isn't broken, but dating kinda is. But I'm reinventing it. Let's do this. Well, hello there, sugar pants. I hope you've had a great week. Welcome to Reinventing Dating. I'm Kira, a life coach for singles, a positive psychology practitioner, troop leader of love, and I am ready to keep blowing your minds on online dating. This is our final episode of the series, Swipe Stories, the realities of online dating. And today I want to talk about something really, really, really important, which is online dating safe? Because there's a lot of different types of safety. And I think that after this series, you and I have to both agree that online dating isn't safe in any way. It's not really safe mentally. We talked about how having so many choices really just shuts us down and we don't choose or commit to anything. It's not safe financially. We talked last week about how $1.3 billion just last year alone was lost to romance scams. It's not safe emotionally. Rejection and the amount of just faux intimacy and fuckery that happens on online dating is a lot. It can take an emotional toll. So today we're talking about physical safety. I'm going to take us back again to, I'd say, like an easier time, an earlier time. Let's go back to the 80s, where men wore short shorts and mustaches and were named things like Bruce, Steve, Rick. So let's imagine the time and you are single in the 1980s. Now, there's a very few ways that you're going to meet people. You're going to maybe meet people through a friend. Lots of people set up other people with their friends, or you met at a party of a friend. You might meet at work or at school. You might meet in some form of a community, like a church or a social group. Or maybe, because it's the 80s, you might meet at a nightclub dancing. Shit like that happened. Absolutely possible. And either way, you have a date with some dreamboat named Rick or Stephanie, something like that. And when you go to the date, they don't show up. They stand you up. You are stood up. This is the worst thing that could have happened in 1985. Going on a date, you going to a bar or a restaurant or somewhere waiting for your date to show up, and they don't show up. And it feels a little shitty and a little weird because you may call your friend who was the one who was setting you up and being like, what the fuck just happened? And then they yell at them. And as a reminder, you're not calling them right away. You're going to have to go find a payphone. And I hope you have 25 cents to put into that payphone, or you can't even call them until you get home. And then I hope your friend doesn't live more than 30 minutes away, or it's long distance, and you can't afford to talk to them for more than like 5 minutes. You guys, if you wanted to have a long distance relationship in the 80s, you could maybe afford to talk occasionally, but most of the time you communicated through letters and mail, or maybe send a telegram or fax. These are the true realities of dating just a mere 30 or 40 years ago. Now, listen, I like true crime enough and Keith Morrison to not ignore the fact that there were plenty of, particularly women, killed in the 80s, but not so much on dates as we are seeing now. Mostly because you dated friends of friends, people you grew up with, people that you met and already knew, friends of the family, but all of these people were vetted. All of these people were given some level of a thumbs up from someone you know. And for them to be a total jackass disturbed the universe, disturbed the force, disturbed friendships and family. So there was accountability there. The craziest shit you were gonna maybe do in 1985 to meet new people is video dating, and you probably have seen some of these videos. I've posted them before of video profiles, but this was always through a company. So you would go, you would make a video of yourself talking about yourself, what you do for a job, what you love. They're pretty kooky if you haven't seen them. But that's still through a company, so there's still some kind of a vetting process. Now let's skip forward to 2023 and you're primarily online dating. It's the fucking wild, wild west out there. You don't know what's around every turn. Maybe a match, but maybe a dick pic. They might be married or already in a relationship, but how would you know that? Because they're lying. Or maybe they're a scammer preying on lonely single people trying to take them for thousands of dollars. It's a lot of fucking fun out there. So every time that we go online onto an app, we are there with our walls up, our armor on, because the anonymity of apps and online dating have allowed people to be shitty as fuck. Listen, looking for or finding somebody that you want to be your fucking life partner, I'm not saying it's always going to be easy, especially now with the expectations we have and so many other things that I am talking about right here on this podcast, but it shouldn't be like this. I don't think you should have to go on some online space of shit that you have to wade through in hopes to just make a simple and single connection with one person. Yes, in 2023, dating and meeting people is pretty hard, but it shouldn't make you feel awful or shitty. And just because we've been sold this idea that online dating is now the norm, is the only way that single people are meeting other people, it's just simply not true. And if you listened to my podcast last week, you would know that if you are straight and over the age of 30, it's 10%. That's it. 10% of people who are coupled, partnered, or married met through online dating apps. That's it. You're probably like, shit, I thought it was a lot more than that. Why did you think it was a lot more than that? Guess who told you it was a lot more than that? Online dating sites. The multi-billion-dollar industry that is making money off of singles and lonely people. The story that we have been sold from online dating apps in the last only 10 or 15 years. You guys, Tinder was only started in 2012. It's barely a little over 10 years old. But that story that we have been sold, that online dating is the only way and the best way to meet people, isn't true. And it's crazy how much we can believe good marketing and selling. Because I had people even show up on my Instagram when I shared that stat last week and tell me I was dead wrong. And so I had to point them to the actual research company that put together this research and data. To me, I'm pretty sure online dating success rates are the greatest urban legend, urban myth ever created. Next to the kid who died from putting Mentos in his Coke or ate it with Pop Rocks or shit like that. The fact that we are all living in this weird dream world that this new form of dating is the only way and the best way. No. I feel like there's some unspoken agreement we have made with the dating apps that because we're using them and they are a company and we're paying them, that they're going to make sure that we are safe and that we are taken care of. They are going to vet people like our friends or family members did in the 80s. But I hate to break it to you, that's just not true. In fact, not only is that not true, apps are not taking care of people at all. Even with all of the new technology we have, most of these apps have not made online dating safe, and I really, really think we need to talk about it. I'd love to take a second to read an excerpt from a ProPublica article in 2020 called "He Sexually Assaulted Her After They Met on Bumble, Then She Saw Him on Tinder and Then Hinge." So the article goes on to say, in the fall of 2018, Emily C. remembers telling Bumble that a man she met through its popular online dating platform had sexually assaulted her. The company didn't respond, she says. 2 months later, after seeing his profile photo on the app, she recalls the same report, no response scenario playing out. Emily C., who requested her last name be withheld to protect her privacy, has matched with this man on other dating apps. Companies use geolocation to find matches for their users, and he lives within a 3-mile radius of her Brooklyn apartment. And when she spotted him on Tinder that year, Emily said she alerted the platform again. She never received a response. "I do not want other women to experience what I had to," she wrote in 2018 to Hinge, a third app that matched the pair. Emily provided the screenshots of his profile to the company stating, "Please, please, please remove him from the app." Hinge, unlike its counterparts, sent her an automatic receipt. "We take abuse reporting very seriously and will be taking immediate steps," the company said in its reply. 2 months later, Emily contacted Hinge to inquire about a report, and she received the same message. "It's like being assaulted twice," Emily, now 27, said of the company's lack of response to a report. "They failed their users. They're not taking responsibility for what they created, which is a monster." Now, asked about Emily's sexual assault report, a Bumble spokesperson declined to speak on the record with Columbia Journalism Investigations. And after our inquiry, the company sent Emily an email thanking her for her bravery and recommending she contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline. After months of her trying to talk to them to get them to take this guy's profile down, get back to her, talk to her. I mean, she's not even asking for any repercussions after being raped from meeting somebody on their app. They thanked her for her bravery and recommended that she contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline, like she didn't know how to Google that herself. Yeah, that's not good. But I wish that that was a one-off. I wish this was a rarity. And I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, it is not. I found a similar story also on ProPublica that shares that on a Sunday afternoon in the summer of 2019, Natalie Dong stood outside the glass headquarters of the popular online dating platform Tinder in downtown Los Angeles with a poster board draped from her neck that read, "My rapist is still on Tinder." More than a year earlier, Dong, then a 21-year-old engineering student, said she was raped in her home by a man she had met on a different dating website, Coffee Meets Bagel. He told Dong he was on other dating platforms, including Tinder, and she reported the events to the police, which didn't lead to criminal charges. That's right. So Dong worried for the female users of these apps, and she said, "I realized he was probably still on these dating apps, going out and meeting new women." She made a list of all the ones that he said he used: Bumble, Coffee Meets Bagel, Hinge, and Tinder. She contacted each of them to report what happened. "I need there to be consequences," she said. Bumble responded to Dong's complaint in 20 minutes. Hinge got back to her after 3 days. Coffee Meets Bagel took 11 days to respond. All 3 platforms apologized and informed her that they had banned the accused user. But that's not true of Tinder. But when Dong contacted Tinder, the process dragged on for weeks. After several email exchanges with no visible outcome, she sought an update on the company's response. He is dangerous and your women users deserve to be kept safe. Here are some really not amazing statistics that you should know if you are online dating that online dating apps are not telling you. So, number one, unpaid apps do not screen for sex offenders. So, Match.com, who owns a lot of major players in the dating apps and site game. So, they own the main ones: Tinder, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, Hinge, do not screen for sex offenders. A spokesperson said there are definitely registered sex offenders on our free products. Okay, so Match.com, which owns, by the way, I just looked this up. Here are all the companies they own, and they're in a lot of different countries around the world, so you've heard of some of these and maybe haven't others. Archer, Azar, BLK, Chispa, Upward, Hakuna, Hinge, Hyperconnect, Match.com, Meetic, OkCupid, Pairs, Plenty of Fish, The League, Tinder. Those are their main companies at this time. So if you are using free versions of any of their stuff, you are guaranteed that there are sex offenders and even registered sex offenders on their products. Are you okay with that? And you don't have to worry about if they have the money for it, because they made $3.19 billion last year. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here to say that due to the fact that they made $3.2 billion last year alone, that's not what they're worth. That's what they made last year. And for the fact that not only they made that much money, but they are a tech company, that there's probably some things that they can put in place that protect people, particularly women, but people in general a lot more. I'm not saying that there aren't things, I'm going to talk about them in a few minutes here, that we can't do to be smarter and date safer, but I also don't think that we should be using a tool like an app and have to worry if the person we're being set up with is a registered sex offender or rapist. It's not the 1800s. There are databases. We now have computers. There is free databases online that give this information. How hard is it for them to put in some basic gatekeeping? Should you have to worry about the person that you met through an app, paid or free, that person not only may harm you on that date? Hey, as a woman, you're worried about that every date. But that they are known, that they have been charged, and these people are letting them hang out in their playground. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Not only are there registered sex offenders on dating apps and dating sites, there's an incredible woman. Her name is Dr. Julie Valentine. She is a professor at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah, and she has done an immense amount of research and studying. So this is what she was quoted to say. All of our findings really indicate to us that the violent sexual predators use dating apps as hunting grounds for vulnerable victims, said Dr. Julie Valentine, who is the primary author of the study out of Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. Valentine is a certified sexual assault examiner and a nursing professor at BYU. Her team conducted the first major study of its kind looking for the relationship between dating apps and sexual assaults. What we found is incredibly concerning, she said. We found that these rapes were much more violent, and a third of the victims were strangled. Several recent cases in the news highlight concerns of more violent attacks related to dating apps, including an Oregon man who went on a run after police said he tortured a woman and was using dating apps to find potential victims. A Kalamazoo, Michigan woman was kidnapped for 3 weeks and brutally beaten by a man she met on a dating app. A Maryland man was arrested in February accused of terrorizing, raping, and robbing men he allegedly lured through a popular dating app. I'm going to keep going. In November of 2022, a Nebraska man's appeal was rejected after he was sentenced to death for dismembering a woman he met through Tinder. In April, a Connecticut man was charged with murder, sexual misconduct, and more after strangling his Tinder date to death. In England in 2015, a 30-year-old man killed a woman on their first date after meeting on the popular dating app Plenty of Fish. They found, and this is just in Utah because that's the only people who are literally taking the time to look into it right now. So they found that 14% of the 1,968 rapes committed by acquaintances in Utah that year happened during a first-time meeting arranged through a dating app. So 14% of acquaintance rapes in Utah were first found through a dating app. So 14%, that's a higher statistic, guys, than the success rate of dating apps. Just pointing that out. So clearly we're noticing that there's a problem here. There's a very, very big problem. Let's talk about what online dating apps are saying they're doing now after getting slammed in the media for years and getting lawsuits to mostly, let's be honest, protect themselves, but supposedly protect you. So I'm going to read from an article in Time published this year in 2023, asking, what are apps doing to keep users safe? Well, Time researched 3 popular dating apps to assess their security measures: Bumble, Hinge, and Tinder, which are the most widely used among people under 30. Both Hinge and Tinder have terms of use that ask users to affirm that they have not been convicted of or pleaded no contest to a felony or any crime involving violence, including sex crimes. So, if I'm reading this correctly, in their terms and conditions that fucking no one ever reads, that's where they have something that says, oh, hey, if you've ever been convicted of crimes involving violence or sex crimes, then you probably shouldn't use this site. Huh. Boy, that's, wow, super protecting its users. Now, the terms and conditions for Hinge and Tinder also ask users to affirm that they're not required to register as a sex offender, though that is not specified on Bumble. But all 3 apps note in the fine print that users are responsible for their interactions with others, and mention that they do not conduct criminal background checks on members or otherwise inquire into the background of users. Okay, final info on this from the Time article. So these online platforms also offer a photo verification process that reassures users that people are using pictures that match what they look like. And in general, these platforms have language in their terms that bans harassment and hate speech. Huh. Bumble's security measures are by far the most extensive, encouraging users to report the match if you meet in person and feel unsafe or uncomfortable, or if you see someone who you know is dangerous offline. But there's still questions as to the efficacy of these policies. Julie Valentine, who I quoted earlier, says that the photo verification process only affirms people's physical identity, but does not say anything about the background and safety of a user. Apps like Bumble's promise to ban or warn users who do not adhere to these community guidelines, but there's no clarity on how one can effectively be banned from the app. Instead, Bumble asks users to let them know if they see somebody that you've already unmatched with, or someone you know who has been blocked from the app so that it can be investigated. Now, Bumble did not respond to Time's request for more information on user safety. So here's my takeaway on this. And by the way, I read a shit ton more articles. There is a ton more information out there about how ineffective these apps are dealing with dating violence, with rapes, with banning, with reporting. It's just not in any way well done. And I even found articles about the people who are the ones going through these complaints maybe have 2 to 3 minutes tops to look over this information, research the person, and make a decision. I can't even imagine. I feel lucky. How fucked up is it that I feel lucky as a 50-year-old woman that I have never been raped? I wish I could say that was true amongst my friends, amongst my clients, but it's not. I would say that I am not part of the norm in that information. But talking to people who have been sexually violated, assaulted, harassed, to know that there are people that could be helping, that could be watching out, that could be making sure that unhealthy and unsafe people are not having easy fucking access. We should be talking about that. We should be concerned about that. We should be pushing back on that. Another shady thing that I think we should know about online dating, and I'll make sure that I share this resource, is that your personal data may be sold to third parties. Dating apps like Tinder and OkCupid and Grindr, especially free dating apps, are also selling your personal data to third parties, like sexual preferences and location with advertising partners. So somebody told me this a long time ago, that when we are using a free product, we are the product. Just throwing that out there. As I mentioned earlier, I feel like we have an unspoken agreement with online dating apps, and one of us is making $3.2 billion, and the other ones are getting hurt, are getting rejected, are getting hate speech, are getting dick pics, are getting harassed, and nobody seems to want to talk about it or care. So we basically know that dating apps are not taking care of us. So we basically know that online dating does not have a great success rate. Let's talk a little bit about what we can do ourselves, because ultimately, as in most times in our culture, we do have to learn how to take care of ourselves. Because I believe and feel like we believe that there are companies or institutions or government or different things like that taking care of us. And I don't think I'm blowing anybody's minds when I say that they are not. So there are things that we have to do to be put in place so that we can feel safe, because only when we feel safe can we be open to giving and receiving love, to welcoming somebody into our lives. All of it. So here are some quick app safety tips, and then some just overall general safety dating tips that we need to keep in mind, and that I feel like enough of us don't know or aren't talking about in 2023. So if you are going to, after all of these podcasts, stay on dating apps, please keep these in mind. Number one, only sign up for apps that you have to pay for, or at least have paid tiers. Reminder, you get what you pay for. Next, use only your first name or a nickname, as it makes you harder to identify if hackers come across your account details. Next, don't give away your home address, work address, phone number, or email address in private messages or when signing up. Next, don't let others persuade you to continue conversations via other apps like WhatsApp or Messenger or Facebook or Instagram. They could be trying to scam you. If they want to get off the app, you may want to ask yourself why. Because the app, although not greatly protecting us, do protect us a little bit, so don't get off the apps. Next, use as little personal and identifiable information on your profile as possible. That includes displaying your education, employer, or other identifiable markers. Also, use different photos than you have other places online. It's easy for people to do a reverse image search on Google, which can allow people to find your social media profiles, to find you online. So make sure that you are using different photos than you post on Instagram or Facebook so that you are not easily connected to private info. Next, turn off your location settings in these apps or use them very sparingly. Be aware of how much they're tracking, what you're doing, and where you're going. And a couple of just really, really basic, smart dating safety guidelines. Remember, you don't know this person. If you listened to my episode last week on romance scams, you'll also know that there are now bots that can look at your social media profiles or even look at your dating app profiles and start to learn about you and find things that they want to talk about with you. So you might think you have built a great connection with somebody who's actually using AI to talk with you. You don't know that person. When you sit across from them on a date, assume they are a stranger, like somebody you just met. Look at them, observe them as such. Next, keep that date short and sweet. You meet in public, during the day, you keep it light. I am hardcore about first dates being short, sweet, and you pay for your own shit so that none of it becomes complicated. There's not weird ass expectations, and there's not a chance for awfulness or violence. Next, stay away from booze. Although I know it can feel easier or like a smart idea to take the edge off or have a little liquid courage, alcohol also can have us sharing things that we shouldn't be sharing yet, doing things that aren't smart or safe. And let's be honest, there's also ways for people to put things in our drinks that probably aren't going to happen in a coffee shop. Finally, here are just some really, really basic dating safety rules. And I know there's quite a few guys that listen to this podcast. So I want you to hear these rules because I think that they are important for you to know too. And I'll explain why in just a moment. Number one, never go to someone's home or invite them to yours. That includes letting them pick you up or drop you off. I don't care how romantic a home-cooked meal sounds. Don't do it until you know them and you can trust them. I think there's all this bizarre ass shit that women are taught that like, oh my God, if a guy offers to make you a meal, if somebody offers to pick you up and open the door, that's like some kind of chivalrous bullshit. That's what a lot of rapists do. Don't fucking do that shit. Next, tell somebody close to you your date's name, when and where you're going, and that you'll contact them once you're safely home. After that, have your gotta go excuse if you're feeling uncomfortable in any way. Next, choose a place that you know and feel safe at. Don't go to areas or places that you've never heard of before. And definitely, whether it is coffee or tea or whatever it is, watch your drink. And if you feel funny or weird in any way, text a friend and ask them for ask for help from someone you can trust, possibly behind the counter or bar, and start drinking water and get medical attention immediately. I sometimes think that we think that roofies are a young person's game. They are not. I have had people of all ages go on dates or go out for a night and come home feeling weird and funny. You never fucking know. And guys, my hetero guys, this part's for you. If you ever hear a woman who you've never met before particularly or have just met say that she's not comfortable going to that area, to that place, during that time of the day, it's not personal. And to me, understanding that women's safety physically is at risk a lot, the nicest and kindest thing you can do is understand that and meet her halfway where she is. Now, I'm not saying that violence and sexual violence does not happen towards men, but the numbers are different and they're pretty staggering. So please stop thinking that somebody is high maintenance if they want to pay for themselves, if they want to meet in a different area than you originally had an idea about. It's not personal, it's safety. And you can't say that you're pro women and pro dating and pro love and pro all of the things and then not want women to date safely. Just as a heads up, if you haven't seen them, there are full accounts on TikTok that have thousands upon thousands of followers of small women's businesses who package adorable, bedazzled, different colored safety items for women, such as tasers, such as pen knives, such as key knives. Shit, there's a whole industry that has been created just for women to protect themselves in public. We can't talk about dating and not talk about that. Well, that's it, guys. That's a wrap on Swipe Stories, the realities of online dating. I hope that if you're going to continue online dating, you really think about the toll of time, emotionally, mentally, physically, it can be taking on you, and you open yourself up to meeting people offline too, because the success rate alone is telling you that you should. I think it's really important for us to have these conversations that even if something is a societal norm, even if this has become the norm of the main dating culture, it doesn't mean it's positive. It doesn't mean it's helping. It doesn't mean it's not hurting. And it doesn't mean it's safe in any way. I believe, and I am 15 years into this now, I believe that love is offline. I believe that we can't shop for our partner on apps. I believe we have to leave our houses, get real, get vulnerable, and spend time with people. And anything that's preventing us from doing that, from feeling safe in doing that, from feeling emotionally taken care of and emotionally safe in doing that, needs to be looked at. What do you think? Have you had bad experiences online dating? God, I hope not. But if you have, I also hope listening to this, you know you're not alone. You know that this is a lot more common than we talk about, because there's a multi-billion-dollar industry not wanting to talk about it. All right, guys. If you loved this, and my gosh, I hope that you did, please subscribe. Please leave a review. I read every single one of them. They warm my fucking heart. And please share it with everybody you know that could benefit from talking about how to reinvent dating. I'll be announcing the new season in the next couple of weeks. I'll actually be talking to people in the podcast membership as well as over on Instagram. So if you have thoughts about what you want me to talk about next, I'm open. I'm breezy. Let's do it. All right, guys, that's it for today. I will see you soon. Happy holidays. And until we meet again, remember to meet love halfway.